Welcome to the Coach's Preview Show. I'm your host, Darrin Joins, Williamson County Schools Athletic Director. I want to welcome my special guest today, Coach Brian Coleman of Summit High School, Coach Donnie Webb of Franklin High School. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having us.
Tonight's game is obviously a non-region game that doesn't really have any type of postseason implications if you're talking about records in your league, but it won't feel that way, will it, with it being a county game, the atmosphere with the fans? Is this why you schedule a game like this? Because you do want to have that playoff kind of feel, even though it's not really impacting the playoffs? Coach Webb?
Well, without a doubt, I think since I've been in Williamson County, anytime you just put School A versus School B in the county, it's a great atmosphere, because more so, let alone the work that his school's doing, my school's doing on the football field. It's the kids and everything else about it and that part of it. So it becomes more of a playoff atmosphere, like what you were saying.
Coach Coleman?
We're just trying to play some of the best teams in the county, and Coach Webb's squad is always the toughest and well coached. So we're just trying to get better each week, and I feel like one day we'll probably be in that region with them. So we're kind of preparing ourselves for that also.
Coach Webb, I remember you said at Media Day, I thought this was interesting. You said when you play teams in the county with coaches you know, when they're non-region games even, you can kind of trust that the coach, you kind of know what they're going to do, as opposed to people are rolling out. You don't know if they're going to try to score 70 points if they're a lot better than you. Talk about that a little bit.
Well,
you did say that,
no,
right?
I did, yes, sir. There's never any cat defense where you got that cat and you get that cat. I mean, it's you pretty much know. Obviously, players make mistakes, and coaches, maybe not coach this well enough or whatever for them not to understand it. But for the most part, if you give them this formation, we're pretty sure that they're going to check and line up to this because this is sound, or this is what it should be, and that's what was meant by it.
Coach Coleman, non-region game, and I'll have both of you guys answer this. In Game 4, do you try to do some different things that maybe you're going to use later on down the road? I mean, not that you don't want to win tonight. You do want to win, but do you watch film a little less? Do you work on you more? How do you approach a non-region game as opposed to a region opponent?
We're treating it just like a region opponent. I mean, we're trying to win the football game. It's a high-quality football team, so we're just trying to get better. You know what I mean? And that's the reason why I scheduled it, because we know Coach is going to he's going to have them coached up well. That's, all the coaches in our county are great. So anytime you can play one of the guys is great. So no, we're definitely treating it like a region game. It's a big game for us. It's a big game for our kids. It's an inner Williamson County team. So they're going to see these kids, out and about and stuff like that. And so they know most of these kids.
Coach Webb? Don't focus any more on yourself maybe than other games?
It's a little different for us right now on that part of it because we're struggling. And so I meant what I said after the Riverdale loss. We couldn't focus on the next team yet because we got so many problems ourselves right now that we're trying to fix. But just to echo what Coach said, to us, it's just the next opponent. And without a doubt, it's like a region game because of that inter-county, basically you could say rivals. I think when any one of us are playing each other, it basically becomes what you'd call a rival game. I know there's certain games in the county that are set that way, understandably so, because of where School A split and became School B or whatever. But you put Williamson County, they're all headed to Cool Springs. They're all Instagramming whatever it's called each other. They know each other, so. Yes, sir. It's going to be a good one.
And then you add the student sections in there too.
Yeah.
I mean, every student section wants to be bigger or better than the other student section, so that gets them involved in it also.
Well, you look at something, I thought Dr. Qualls did a good job of this. I mean, the student sections have such an impact. Last year at the Wilcos, we've got a Student Section of the Year award now. And you guys may or may not know this, but the way he set that up initially, one of those brilliant kids we have in the school system figured out a way to make it vote and blew the system up. He had to redo it. So it's like the Cameron Crazies times 9 in this county for sure.
It's and Coach has been in other counties as well, and everybody always looks, it's the grass is greener on the other side. this county, with our student sections and our backing from the kids and the community part of it, now granted, I'll use Rutherford County for example. I'd love to have their in-school weightlifting, that they
Obviously.
have, but they'd love to have what we bring over to actually bigger crowds to them, sometimes because of our kids. It really is.
Right. Let's take a look at the history. Now, obviously, the teams are a lot different, but you guys actually matched up in 2013 and 14. Franklin winning both contests. The first one at Summit, 49-12, and then 2014 at Franklin, 35-10. Again, different teams, different time. Coach Coleman, let's talk about your time at Summit. So you come in, 4th year of the school's history. When you arrive, the school and the team was 4-26.
Yeah.
Your first year, 0-10. After that, after that, you're 30-18. 30-18, including 3 straight trips to the playoffs. 2016, you lose to Cane Ridge in the first round. 2017, you make it all the way to the quarterfinals against Beach High School. If I'm not mistaken, Beach was the runner-up that year. And then last year, you lose a tough one in the first round to Beach. 45-42, I think, was the score.
3 overtimes.
They go on to the semifinals. So you've got to be excited about, you're part of like building a program and building a history at your school. That's got to be fun to see the fruits of your labor starting to pay off.
And that was the word we always used, even when the 0-10, we were building a program. We knew it was going to take some lumps, along the way, but it was all about the program. It was about, not just winning football games, but everything that goes into it. The weight room, the atmosphere, the student sections, the parents, the booster club. We had to do all of that and, teach them what we thought was the right thing to do. So there was a lot that went into it. And that 0-10 year, that was back when it was 5A, 6A, and 5A was in with 6A during the regular season. Then we split up during the playoffs.
Yeah.
So we were kind of like in their region. And not even
was that
close.
The Z plan? Is that what that was called?
Yeah,
gosh,
I think that was the name of it once you got to the playoffs. But that was the first thing I was going to say
That
when
was
it came
tough.
to me.
Yeah.
That was really tough on them.
We were
Just
the
to set
only
up.
5A in that 6A region.
was.
Wow.
And then when we split off and go to the playoffs, which we didn't make the playoffs, we went 0-10, but that was rough. And the kids had been beat up. They were young kids and got thrown into the fire. So it was rough, but learned a lot from it.
And talk about that being a little different if you compare it to something like basketball. Only 5 guys are out on the court. You've got a much more physical kind of game. That makes it even tougher, right?
It's a whole lot tougher, because they're not physically ready. I mean, your neck, your shoulders, your body is not physically ready to take on. And these guys were younger, and a 16-year-old taking on an 18-year-old. So yeah, it's a physically taxing sport. So you better be ready and prepared for it. And they just weren't yet.
Coach Webb, looking at your situation at Franklin, obviously a lot different. Franklin, that school dates back to 1910. So you can talk about the tradition of the school, whereas they're sort of making tradition as they go. Obviously a lot of long tradition there at Franklin High School. You've been the head coach 8 years at Franklin High School. Something that really stood out to me when I went back and looked at your record is 5 of your 7 years you've been a playoff team. And really, let's talk, most of those years you're in, if not the toughest, one of the 1 or 2 toughest leagues in the state. So you've got to be proud of that.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's players, and kids and working hard. But my years are going to date me. I'm trying to think, one of them back was when it was us in Ravenwood, and we were lumped with Mount Juliet and some of the metro schools. That was one year that was really, because we struggled early, very similar to what we are right now, and then we went on a 6-game winning streak and got beaten overtime in the second round of the playoffs.
Well, and I was going to mention this later, but since you brought it up, I know this is something you and I have talked about before. If you finish in the top 3 in your league this year, you might be the favorite in that first round of the playoff, and then maybe all 4 of our teams make it this year. So playing in that league, being battle tested, it's got to help you in the playoffs if you get to that point.
Oh, it should. It's going to be supposed to say fun battle. It's going to be a tough battle. Obviously, right now, other teams have still got to take their shot. Ravenwood's got to be figured as the favorite, and I saw them. They're a really good football team, but then in football it's really hard. You can't judge scores because you can't use scores to judge what's going to happen in another game. Is what I'm saying. But just seeing what some of the others did with the region we would be lined up with, I think whoever makes playoffs would have a chance to compete for sure.
Coach Coleman, and I know you don't want to look ahead, but you certainly, just talking about your region now, that Page Summit game that's coming up, I think I've looked at it, by the way, October 4th. That's going to be a great kind of atmosphere, and really whoever wins that game could be the region champion. Obviously, Shelbyville may have something to say about that too. But who are some other teams in 5A? Forget maybe even your own league that you look at, but obviously Beach High School being one of those teams. Who are some others in this area that you go, that's a program we'll have to deal with, hopefully, as the playoffs start? And again, I'm making you skip ahead.
You said Beach because they put us out the last 2 years, so definitely Beach. And it seems like Gallatin's on the rise. We were looking at Hillsboro, watching Hillsboro a lot, and then Gallatin almost run-rolled them last week. So Gallatin's definitely a program on the rise, and then that's the top three in that region on that other side. So they're pretty tough. And then you got some teams out. You got the Knoxville team out east. So, but closer to the first round, second round is definitely Beach and Gallatin. I'd say right now.
I bet when you were watching that running back from Gallatin, you were thinking, I'd like to have that guy for the old wing tee.
Yes, sir.
Definitely. He's kind of the prototype, isn't he?
He is. He seems like it.
See, Coach, I got it. Nobody had to even verse me on this.
There you go.
Coach Webb, let's talk a little bit too about, this is a region question, but last week too. Let's talk about Ravenwood. Obviously, you're not worried about Ravenwood now. You've already played them. Is that the best team that you've competed against since you've been in the league? And maybe talent-wise or otherwise?
Speed-wise, it's one of the fastest Williamson County teams that I've seen since I've been here. I'm talking about overall team speed. Somebody may have one or two guys that can get it and go, but overall team speed, they're everyone wants to talk about their high-flying offense, start fast offense and all that stuff, but that defensively they're pretty fast, and when you get you better have the speed close to it, because we were able to get on blocks, but then they close quickly.
Right.
And so I don't, I hate to ever just say the best of there. I'm just saying, but they're a really, really good football team.
Well, and I asked Coach Kreisky this too after that week one game. Obviously, they went down 49-21 on week one. But I asked him, I said, it's hard to maybe admit this. Maybe we can talk about it privately. But I told him, I said, isn't part of it for you? It's kind of nice to have that game over with, because not that we're just going to say Ravenwood's got it, here we go. But to get that one, that's one that a lot of people are going to lose, is what I'm saying. Would you like to play that one later in the year? Is it okay that you played it early? Are you indifferent about it?
We drew it. That's the way it draws, and that's the way we played it. And other years, it's they might have been asking the same question about us. So I just think it's the year that we're in, and the class of student athletes is coming through, because that's what it comes down to, is players.
It helps.
Oh, without a doubt it does. And but the worst part for us, the way I look at it, and the coaches, when it's first region loss, so we're behind in battling for the playoffs.
Right. Coach Coleman and Coach Webb and I talked about this a little bit before you got here. You guys so you play a region game last week, big win over at Columbia. You don't, unless I looked at this wrong, you don't play another region game. It'll be your final 4 games. Am I saying that right?
Yes, sir.
I know you don't necessarily get to determine that. Your region probably determines that. How do you feel about that, having those games before those final 4? Would you like it mixed in a little more if you could choose what you were going to do? What would you do?
I mean, I guess it's okay. It's kind of the level of competition. It matters to us, the level of competition that I scheduled getting up to that point. You know what I mean? We're trying to prepare for those games. So it's not bad. I mean, I guess hopefully by that time you know your identity of your team and you're trying to click on all cylinders. So in that aspect, I think it's okay. Now, yeah, I guess you could sprinkle 1 or 2 before that, but it's going to be a gauntlet towards the end of the year, and you have to factor in the injuries and stuff like that. But I think hopefully that we're prepared as a team and firing off cylinders when we get to that point.
So you guys too, and I've always been fascinated about this with football in terms of scheduling. You're a little bit more limited in terms of what you can do and who will schedule, because you do 2-year contracts, right? And then you have this great year or a down year, and it impacts how you can schedule.
Oh.
And then maybe you get a schedule that's not ideal for you that year. Coach Webb, I've heard you talk about that a lot in terms of trying to schedule some. You go to the quarterfinals a couple of years ago, you have a younger team the next year, but nobody wants to play.
Yeah, it's literally on the bus on the way to Whitehaven, making phone calls and texting
For the next year.
For the next year.
Saying we're not going to be as good as we are.
And we were trying. Seriously, it was trying to fill those dates because they were getting everywhere else. They were getting filled up, and it wasn't as hard when you were 6-4, you know. And,
right.
But we were in the playoffs against Cane Ridge last year. But really, to tell the truth, we're not supposed to schedule until a certain point. But word of the mouth, gentlemen's agreements have already started, and now with our region. Ours is pretty much set because you got 5 region games, so it's set. Are y'all odd or even? Because I don't. Because what's hard is when you get like one of those
region weeks.
Yes, and then everybody else is in region, and you're trying to find a game, and that's when it gets really tough of trying to fill those dates.
Coach Coleman, I'm just going to guess now. I'm not the smartest guy, but I'm going to guess in 2011 and 12
phone
and
ringing
13.
off the hook.
And then now everybody's got conflicts, right? As you guys are getting
Phone
better.
was definitely ringing off the hook. And now, or I say last year, teams wouldn't play us because of our offense. They didn't want to play against the wing T offense, which I guess a lot of people don't see that anymore. Some people might want to play it just because of that, but I mean, there's just so many different things that go into it. And like Coach said, you got to get the weeks right and stuff like that. But I mean, you want to play good competition. I mean, you always want to play good competition. I think we do, and different philosophies too. I mean, different coaches, they're calling 0-10 teams like, man, I need to get a win. I mean, we're playing Indy, we're playing Franklin, we're playing even Spring Hill, so we're trying to get better.
Well, and you talk about the wing tee. Now, I don't know if you know this about me. I spent some time with Roger Holmes
Oh, yeah, okay.
at Beach High School, and I loved Coach Holmes, and I was fascinated. I mean, I didn't know a lot about football, but it was fascinating, that wing tee. I'm sure you guys have had some conversations over the years, haven't you?
Just a few, a few clinics.
What's that thing he does? What's he call that? Like wing TU, or he does that?
Oh, it's not wing T, yes.
It's like
it's
his
in
Twitter.
Dublin right now.
Yeah, it's like his Twitter
Dublin.
handle too.
He has a clinic and everything. I can't think of it.
It's not the How Mummy Air Raid clinic. It's the Wing T clinic.
No, they're coming down there for the belly trap.
That's right.
So let's talk about last week's game. Now, Coach Coleman, to me, a couple things happened where I look at it just as a coach and say, here's a sign of a team that's going to be a contender. You're down 14-0, nothing against Columbia. I mean, they're obviously a pretty good team. They were undefeated going to that game. You're down 4. Your team just, but what I read, I wasn't at the game, but hearing some of your comments, they didn't panic. Just worked their way back. Right. That's what a good team does. I don't know if you would say it was your best effort overall, but sometimes it's just about getting a win. So you had to be pleased with how you guys hung in there.
There's 2 different ways to look at it. At Spring Hill the week before, it was 14-7 at half. We were up, and we played terrible the first half and played better the second half. So all we can pray, we're stressing, start fast, don't get down 14-0 or 21-0 or whatever. And daggum if we didn't get down 14-0. But on the other hand, you look at it, yes, we didn't panic. We're still kind of young. Yes, we didn't panic. And again, in the second half, we, persevered and scored a few points in the second half. So we do have to fix the slow starts. But again, you look at it the other way with third and fourth quarter, maybe the other team's getting tired and cramping. Maybe we're in pretty good shape. Maybe we didn't. Maybe we don't panic. So still, we, as a coaching staff, we want to start fast. We want to start better. But then again, you can think and positive saying to the kids, well, maybe guys, y'all are in shape. Good job not panicking and fighting back.
That score, no indication of probably how you felt during the game. 34-14, it turns out. Yeah. Talk about Destin Wade. 4 touchdown passes. First one to his brother Keaton midway through the second quarter to make it 14-7. Talk about him. I noticed your comments also is you said, hey, I would like to run a little more. But we've got to take advantage of his skills and his abilities, right?
That's exactly right. And anybody that's ever known me, I really don't like throwing the ball. And everybody's, your boy Tate, he's making fun of me all the time. And the other guy that was here, what's his name again? Doctor whatever. But yeah, we always wanted to run the football because we were wing T. We wanted to run the football because we were in the 0-10 years, in the 4-6. We want to shorten the game. We want to have as many possessions and shorten the time that the other team had the ball. So we're running the ball and, running clock. So now we've got some guys like Destin, like Keaton, like George, like John Casey, like Ashton LaBelle. They're skill guys that we've tried to get in space. So we've changed things up as far as formations. And part of running the ball is protecting the football. And as long as Destin is protected, he's thrown one interception in however many attempts we've had so far this year. He's protecting the football. So, everybody always says, well, there's so many bad things that can go wrong with passing. You can miss or you can throw an interception. With him, he's protecting the football, and we're kind of catching it a lot of the time. So I'm okay with that, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. Coach Webb, obviously down early, but I noticed too, you talked about this as well, and I wasn't there at that game either, but Ravenwood's up 21-0, and after that, it's 7-0, and I'm assuming at 21-0, they didn't play the JV team then.
Not yet, no.
Yeah, you're in there hanging, and I noticed your comments. You were pretty proud of how your team responded after that first quarter. Talk about that.
The big thing was, we practiced it all week, and that was disappointing. Is we really had to stress they want to start fast. They want to start fast, and obviously, credit to them, they made the plays and was able to start fast. What we've got to do, and that's what I kept talking about, I got to go way back earlier when we were talking about who do you worry about, is it a region game, and that type of stuff, is we got to fix us, and we've got to get some first downs, because we're the same way. We're wanting to run the football. We're spreading the field to try to make the defense spread out so that we can run the football, whereas in the past we would bring them all inside and run the football that way. If we still had 24 at running back, and it's nothing against the kids we got right now, they're just not there yet.
Right.
He'd run through some of this stuff. Matt was Matt Gaka actually, and he was a tough kid and would get us through some of that stuff. And so that's what I'm saying, we got to work on us. I was proud of the way we kept fighting. And then, in all honesty, I went for it on fourth down in our territory late there. It was about midfield. It was almost about midfield. We're say the game wasn't a 21-point difference. We're probably punting it away and still trying to play. And, I put our kids in a bad spot for that last one as well. And then with a good football team like that, they take advantage of it.
Coach, and I did want to ask you guys this because this is something I noticed about your teams, and we'll talk more specifically about tonight's game. I had the opportunity as a basketball coach, work with Anthony Crabtree, Coach Webb there at Franklin. Something I noticed about both of your teams that I love, especially being in my position now, you've got dudes that play other sports. Is that something that just happens? Is that something you consciously talk about? You try to promote? I know the answer for Coach Webb, but I'm just curious how that's worked out, because I like that. You look at those Wade brothers.
Yes.
They're going to be those guys that basketball and football coaches are going to be saying, are they ever going to graduate?
Yeah.
Like they're 34 years old here, it seems like. So talk about that, and really sharing's not even probably the correct word, but I see a lot of that on both of your teams.
Yeah, and that's fine. We promote it. The thing is that we push is, all right, if you're going to play multiple sports, even if you're going to play three, you got to know that you're a three-sport athlete, that you got to do a little extra maybe than somebody else. If you're finished with practice, then go throw a football a little bit. If we're finished with football practice this on Saturday or Sunday, go shoot the basketball. That's fine. Do that. Get better at your other sports. You just got to know that you're going to have to put a little bit more time into it than your buddy over here that's playing one sport. And you got to let them understand that. And then if you're wrestling, wrestling helps football because the leverage and things like that. So each sport helps the other sports out. And the support that other coaches give us and we give the other coaches is makes the school stronger too as a whole, I think.
And Coach Webb, I know you'll echo that because I saw it up close and personal for 3 years.
Oh, without a doubt. And exactly what Coach Coleman was saying about you have to do the extra, as a coach who's done it long enough that all of us have done it long enough, you've seen it, and you hear the word, I'm going to focus.
Yeah, what's that mean, right?
I doubt very seriously at 3:30 they're hitting a baseball or,
Right.
or if it focuses on studies, I doubt that they're doing that English assignment right at that time. And so I think what's good about them being involved in other things also is that probably truly puts more focus on them as an athlete instead of saying they're going to focus on something, then really they're not focusing on anything at all at that point.
And I hope I'm right about this. I'm seeing it start to flip back where people are doing more, which I think is a good thing.
It really looks like it in our county, and that's credit to our parents and in their upbringings, and they want them involved in things. That's why they're all gonna make a whole lot more money, be a whole lot smarter than I am. Most of them are, and it's. But the thing is, you just got to stress it's our game. It's so different. Where it becomes the hardest, I think, sometimes is on those front seven type players, the linemen, and we actually have one that will be a basketball player and he'll start. He may not start in basketball, but he'll be a player. It's you get the weight room so much different that they got to find that time for that because our sport, it's just that part of it. Where a skill kid, even though we still want them in there and we want to push them, it's a little different the type of contact they're having on Friday night.
No doubt about it. All right, let's talk about tonight's game here. Coach Webb, defensive guy, obviously. I know you're probably having some nightmares. You had them this week when you're thinking about Destin Wade and Gio and Keaton Wade and all the weapons Summit has on offense. But as a defensive guy, you got to be salivating a little bit going for that challenge because you got to love the challenge of going against an offense like Summit.
Well, I hope that
Or do you?
Here's the thing, bottom line, and they're doing a great job. I still see the wing tee, and I don't mean it like but I say that is because Coach Coleman would do this as well. Whenever you start defensively and do anything, you always talk about how you defending the option and how you defending the wing tee because they're hitting all aspects of the gaps, because they're going to hit them all, those teams and those guys that do it. And so it doesn't matter what game we're going into, you're still fan. Now when you're truly seeing it and it's coming down on it, it's we went from 2 weeks of RPOs and things of that nature to there's at times where someone's just going to try to bloody our nose tonight, and how are we going to react to that? That's going to be the big part.
Coach Coleman, talk about this. Will this be one of the biggest offensive lines that your defense will face this year with Fisher Anderson and Jason and the sophomore? What's the sophomore? What's the sophomore's name?
For us, Mason Jones?
No, you got another big sophomore. Maybe you do.
That's
junior.
Fish.
No, Fisher, Jason.
Oh, you're talking about Schwartz?
Yes.
You have to go hard. I'm at the center. I'm sorry.
So talk about that, dealing with that, your defense.
That was a point we made Monday. Yeah, the defensive line, you better be ready. This is the best defense. The best offensive line or biggest offensive line you're going to see all year. And as far as the whole team, they're fighting. They're fighters. They're going to, throughout the whole game, like he just said again, he was proud of his kids for how they fought against Ravenwood. They're fighters. They're going to be physical. It's going to be a physical game, and that's what we want. That's what we want to see. Their quarterback, he's fighting his tail off. He's trying to put the team on his back, and that's awful fun to watch. So it'll be a good game.
Gentlemen, good luck to both of you tonight. I appreciate you being here. We'll see you next time.